はい、今日はですね、戦後、同じく敗戦国として出発して、このようにいち早く脱原発を進め再利用可能エネルギーの推進をしていますドイツのこの主政ドイツの実情についてドイツ大使館のクラウス・アウアー公使に来ていただきまして、お話を伺います。それで、早速ですがちょっと英語でいきますけど後で、字幕でお伝えします。Thank you very much, Ms. Awa-san. And recently, for America has gained a kind of victory, but she has to form the coalition, and to have the third government start, she, I think, has to overcome kind of difficulty. It's a kind of typical German political system, but they are very honest to make coalition. They once they decided, they discuss each policy into detail, how to. Then both the coalition parties could show the people, we will do, we have decided, agree, we have agreed this. So it is very different. It's quite interesting.
Dear Unoki-san, thanks first of all for inviting me here and giving me an opportunity to speak on your channel about German affairs. It's a big pleasure to be here and to be with you. We know each other for many years, so it's quite a nice return to the Japanese media scene. On your question, yes, indeed. We've had our elections last Sunday, and it was a thrilling elections. Very few people had expected these results. A near absolute majority for the reigning Christian Democrats and Chancellor Merkel. The going under of the Liberal Party, the Free Democrats, which will not be represented in the next parliament, and well, the existence of the Social Democrats, the Greens, and the Left Party on the other hand. Indeed, as Ms. Merkel and the Christian Democrats have not gained absolute majority, they need a coalition partner, and that will be very tricky in the future, because all the other parties are losers. The Social Democrats, the Greens, the Left, they all stayed lower than they had expected, and none of them is eager to go into a coalition with the Christian Democrats. So indeed it will turn out to be rather difficult, and these negotiations normally are put down in a paper, which is called coalition paper, where both parties agree on what they want to achieve during the next legislative period of 4 years. And I could imagine that these negotiations and the drafting of this paper will last quite a long time. I'd be happy if it ends still this year.
Yes. So in that way, your politicians discuss, or your people also involved in the discussion were making some decision. And to abolish nuclear reactors you had done, and then already, and after Fukushima, you have decided to promote further renewable energy system. But I'm quite interested in the Ethics Commission on Energy in Germany, in the future of Germany. So why the ethics?
Well, the Ethics Commission was indeed a commission which was put up in close connection with the Fukushima accident. So you can see this from the dates. It was founded on the 22nd of March 2011 in the immediate aftermath of the Fukushima accident, and it only worked for 2.5 months until the end of May, when it made its report. And it was called into existence by the government, in particular by Chancellor Merkel, who asked the Commission to work out a paper and work out a plan how nuclear energy can be phased out and how it can be replaced by renewable energies. That's saying it means that in the Ethics Commission which was headed by our former Environmental Minister Töpfer. Who was also the head of the United Nations Environmental Program UNEP for many years. So this Ethics Commission didn't argue about whether continue or not continue with nuclear energy. For them, it was already decided that we would phase out nuclear energy. They were just answering how this change in our energy landscape would be put into practice.
Also, a politician from the Greens visited Japan, and she mentioned the ethics, also the value. So once the nuclear reactor has accident, you can't solve within your own country, among yourselves. The accident will have a big impact on the whole world, beyond the border. So should be abolished as soon as possible. And also, the lady mentioned also for nuclear waste or spent fuel problem, you can't solve in your own generation. You have to leave such burden to the next generation after generation. So from these points of view, she mentioned this commission was very important.
Indeed, the Commission was very important. It was a very important step in this rather rapid and dynamic process of decision-making for the phasing out of nuclear energy. Fukushima had in Germany a very great impact. Fukushima was, in a way, the drop which made the cup overflow. There had been a very long discussion on nuclear energy for many decades. So when I was a student, I was involved already in this discussion. But it was finally after Fukushima that everyone agreed that this is over now. So Fukushima really was not the turning point, but the last final nail in the coffin of nuclear energy in Germany. And the Ethics Commission, with all its members, were asked to do a roadmap how this phasing out should happen. And that's what they did on the 30th of May 2011, only 2.5 months after their start. They brought up this report and they described this way. And that's basically what we are following now.
And also, when I followed the discussion, this former so-called senior bureaucrats in charge of nuclear industry like that, most of them said it's very dangerous, and they mentioned negative or bad aspect of nuclear industry. So we are very surprised. They are quite honest.
You're talking about the amakudari.
Yes.
Well, amakudaris are quite a common phenomenon, not only in Japan but also in Germany for a long time. There has been quite a cozy relationship between the industry and the administration, which had various reasons, but which was particularly strong in this field of nuclear energy, because the nuclear energy, since its existence, was always a kind of a closed shop, and that's a part of the problem. It's different from other fields of industry. It's a very exclusive club, and either you're in favor or you're against it. So there's not much leeway in between these positions. But I think in Germany, and again after decades of quarrel and discussion and political fight, there is really, even with the former pro-nuclear activists, there is a consensus that we should finally phase out. Because for different reasons, even the protagonists of nuclear energy have by now agreed and accepted that nuclear energy under the conditions in Germany is not feasible, is not economically viable, and it's also in the interest of the industry, of the energy industry, to phase it out in an orderly manner.
Quite interesting. So, and also I was surprised that Siemens agreed to stop abandon the nuclear industry and changed their effort or business to another thing. And I heard also they're promoting some wind power energy.
Indeed, Siemens is a very good example. Siemens was involved in the installation and planning of various nuclear facilities in Germany as well as in foreign countries for export. And it took them, so they were staunch promoters of nuclear energy for a long time. But already in the 1990s, Mr. von Pierer, who was then the head of Siemens, there was a change of mind. Again, the resistance against nuclear energy is very, very old in Germany. The rise of the Green Party is connected to green energy. And so also Siemens has understood that it is not possible to make this, promote nuclear energy against the permanent and constant will of a large part of the population. And so eventually they also agreed on, well, we have to live with that and we have to just change our policy. And that's what they did. And as you said today, they are very strong in renewable energies. They build wind parks and they see all the opportunities in that. And they gradually give up their field of business in nuclear energy.
So, but thinking of the Siemens case, it is quite interesting because still Japanese big companies are obsessed in promoting the industry. Anyway, so, and also the ethics commission discussion is quite open to the public. Very transparent.
Yes, yes.
That's also another thing.
Yes. Yes, I mean, as I said, when the ethics commission was created, the decision of the phasing out was already taken. So the ethics commission was basically not very controversial anymore. One of the interesting results is that even parties which have been pro-nuclear for the longest time, like the Christian Democrats, with the change of their policies to be now pro-phasing out against nuclear energy, they have gained a lot of support. And when you look at the results of our last elections just 3 days ago, you have seen a fall of the Green Party and you've seen a rise of the Christian Democratic Party. This is in part because the Green Party were the staunchest opponents of nuclear energy, and everyone who was against nuclear energy supported the Greens. Now that also the big parties, and in particular the Christian Democrats, they are for phasing out nuclear energy. So no reason for the Greens anymore, who was basically a one-topic party. So you see this changes also the political landscape in Germany, and to the profit, to the gains of the establishment, of the established even right-wing parties.
And also I heard that by promoting renewable energy system, you successfully increase jobless problem. You successfully solve the jobless problem. So many jobs are made throughout nationwide, not only the particular site.
This is indeed true, and I brought you some figures. The increase of jobs from renewable energy is very impressive and very remarkable. So in the year 2000, we had some 100,000 jobs in renewable energy. And now, 30 years later, this number has more than tripled, nearly quadrupled. Today, we have 370,000 jobs in renewable energy. And for 2020, we have a projection of reaching 500,000 jobs. So this becomes a very important part of our industrial productivity and of our labor market. And I would say, I don't have a figure how many people at its peak times worked in nuclear energy in all the complexes and research, etc. But I would say that already today this number matches the number of people that have ever worked in nuclear energy business.
Quite interesting, because in Japan, the media tend to report mega solar project or big wind power project promoted by big companies. But I heard that in your country, so many individuals or small local unions were encouraged to join the business. So quite interesting.
Indeed, yeah, that's I think is one of the most charming and interesting parts of renewable energies, that it is by its very nature decentralized. So different from our traditional energy industry, you don't have a few big plants which produce electricity for the whole nation, be it nuclear or be it conventional, but you have many small units, be it on town or village basis, be it on private basis. I mean, every homeowner who puts a solar panel on his roof, or every farmer who puts 3 or 4 windmills on his terrain, contributes to this electricity production. So it's even atomistic. It's very, very decentralized, and so it changes, of course, the landscape of energy production by this shift of technology.
And also, I always compare your country and Japan, but often people in local areas complain electric companies refuse to take their electricity into the line. But your government urged them, the big electric companies, to accept the power companies' preference.
Indeed, the formal steps, and that was also part of the report of the Ethics Committee, the 2 formal steps to phase out nuclear energy and to promote renewable energy was one law which said, well, nuclear energy has to be phased out until 2022, and every year we have so and so many megawatts which can still be produced through nuclear energy, and then according to the age of the various plants, they have to be shut off in an orderly manner. That was the one law, and the second law was a so-called Energieeinspeisungsgesetz. That's a difficult thing to translate into English.
Energieeinspeisung.
Energieeinspeisungsgesetz. Energy injection law. Well, that's an amateurish translation. When in this law, it was said that the energy companies are not only urged, but they are obliged. They are obliged to buy electricity from every person and unity who offers it to them, And so there is no question whether they can do or want to, but they have to actually buy it. But of course it has also a downside in the sense that this costs money.
Yes.
And the electricity providers are indeed have the right to increase their rates, their tariffs, according to that. So there is a raise of prices which is felt by the consumers, as well as by the industry. So it's this reform comes with a price tag. It's not for free.
Mm-hmm. But quite reasonable. So because every data is transparent, so people can tell, how much small electric companies would sell big power companies. Then the cost this will be increased this way. So you have to support it. So it's quite very transparent. You can easily understand.
Yes, it is transparent, but it's also still full of discussion and quarrel. So one of the topics, for example, is that export industry has complained, saying if tariffs for electricity go up, we will lose our competitiveness, and they have asked and successfully asked for rebates on this tariff, which on the other side then had to be taken in charge of by the consumers, by the average consumers. So there was quite some quarrel, and still is, about that. That was one of the points of the Greens, who said, well, industry has to take the same burden, same share of burden as anyone else. So I don't want to give the impression that everything goes in peaceful harmony.
Yeah.
there are.
Yeah, your country is full of discussion. That's the nature, you know.
That's the nature.
A very free society, free discussion.
But it is transparent. Indeed,
yes, yes. And so naturally, you promote also energy saving policy. Save energy.
Yes.
I also heard that, of course, your country is kind of colder compared with southern Japan. So double glass fence system or window system like that, many kinds of things you implement. So how have you made a progress in saving energy?
Yes, this is a very important aspect of the renewable energy policy. And if I may come back to the price policy we just touched upon in the former question, of course the best energy saving policy is to increase prices, because the higher the price of a commodity becomes, the more everyone wants to save it. That's why in a certain range an increase of electricity prices is a part of this process. Because if energy would stay as cheap as it is, I mean, not much point to save it. But indeed, Germany has a policy to support these energy savings measures. There is a large government program, for example, which fosters installations of houses and apartments. So an apartment or a house owner who decides to have double or even triple glassed windows and increase the insulation of its house, he gets a support, he gets money for this. So there are various programs in that sense. It also there is a difference between Japan and Germany in a different field, but which touches upon that. In Germany, houses are normally built for much longer periods than in Japan. I don't know what the average lifespan of a Japanese house is, but I think, like in America, it's 20, 30 years or so, then you build a new one. In Germany, if you build a house, you normally build it for 100 years or 150 years. And of course, when you have a longer-term perspective in constructing a house, then you're much more willing to invest in this house. So this is also a part of the differences. But in general, you're completely right. Energy-saving methods, be it through insulation, be it through other means, more efficient burners, for example, internal heat production, be it through solar cells, or be it through biogas, or be it through geothermal heat, is a big part of this whole process of energy shift.
So some Japanese politicians visited your country and visited some tiny town. So they have almost 100% power resources by themselves, and they sell outside. So quite
yes. As I said, the charms of this renewable energy is that it's decentralized. So a town or a village or even a household can produce its own energy, and but it's also part of the problem, if you want, because making an equilibrium between production and consumption in these conditions is, of course, much more difficult than if you just have some big entities which can be balanced quite easily. So I don't want to give the impression that it's just simple doing. It's a very complex and difficult process which will eventually lead to this energy shift, but we are by no means finished with this process.
Yeah, the mayor of the town said also saving energy many ways. So they can now sell because they don't consume so much, or like that. And if, as one of my friends also said, so now I had decided to use my solar energy by ourselves, like that. So in many ways, but so far I have some general impression. So far you have successfully expanded, developed, and made progress of renewable energy and saving energy policy.
Yes. When it comes to the figures about how renewable energies have increased between 2000 and 2010. I have here figures which say that the turnover of renewable energy has increased from 5 billion euros to nearly 40 billion euros. So it had eightfold increased the turnover if you just calculate it in monetary terms. If you look at the production, which during the same period was generated by renewable energies, it increased from 300 PG to nearly 1,500. So it has increased 5 times. And it's interesting to see that most of this increase and the biggest share of renewable energy is not wind energy or is not solar energy everyone talks about, but most of it, the biggest share, even 2/3, is from biofuel, biogas, energy. There is a very big potential in the use of biogas from various sources, be it from the farmers, be it from waste treatment, etc., etc. So this is by far the biggest share.
Oh, quite interesting. Biomass energy. We have rarely discussed such thing.
We have whole farms which now run completely on biogas, especially when you have farming units which produce a lot of products, like pig farms. Pig farms produce a lot of biological matter which can be transformed into energy afterwards. So these units produce not only electricity but also heat, which then can either be used for heating human dwellings, but also for production, like greenhouses, etc. So there are tremendous number of opportunities and variations in renewable energy.